All right, before we get started, these are the tools you're gonna need to remove the steering wheel and to transfer all the electronics to the new steering wheel. So first thing's a ratchet with decent leverage, a 19mm socket, and a small extension to come out long enough to not hit the steering wheel. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver and a smaller Phillips for the smaller screws. Something to remove the tabs. This little pick right here works really good, but you can also use a small flathead. That's about it. All right, first things first, we gotta use this 12mm to take off the negative terminal on the battery, because we're gonna be taking off the airbag. So take this guy off. There we go. I like putting the bolt back just so it doesn't get lost. It doesn't have to be torqued, just kind of thread it in there. And this, just make sure it doesn't touch the car at all. Get it out of the way there. If you want some peace of mind, you can go ahead and push the start button. Nothing happens, so battery terminal is completely off. You don't have to worry about anything. I like using these little picks for little panels like this. It seems like the flathead always ends up gouging a part of the plastic. So the first panel has got to come off. And second panel is on this side. It's actually part of the cruise control. There's that little clip. There we go. Sorry, guys. All right, this right-hand side, the clip's right here. So you just barely stick in the pin and it pops right off. Both of those are off. All right, now we're gonna start releasing the airbag. There's this little pin right here. And what you wanna do, there you go, push up. And you see it released. All right, the other one is up here. There we go. You just push it away from you and you'll feel the airbag release. So now we just gotta do the right side. All right, looking at the right side, there's the tab right there. I might not be able to hold the phone and do it, but the phone's actually helping me find the tab because it was really hard to see without it. Just gonna push it. There we go. All right, now all you gotta do is just pull out the airbag carefully. And you can get to the connections. These little tabs here, you just pop up with the flathead. There we go. So this seems to work out better because it actually goes in right in between this little section. You can get these at Harbor Freight. They're like a couple bucks. There we go. And then now, see what I'm doing is I'm applying a little bit of pressure on this. I'm just turning it and it pops it right off. There we go. Now we'll get this ground off. Jesus, come on. a safety? Oh, there's a safety pin on there. That's why it wasn't coming off. All right, airbag is out. So I do have an airbag coming in that's custom, and it replaces this cover here. And but seeing as I don't have to take the steering wheel out to replace the airbag, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the steering wheel, and I'll just do the airbag when it gets here, because it's back ordered and it's literally been 4 extra weeks waiting for that thing. So I'm tired of waiting. I'll do another video for the airbag once it comes in. Now we have to remove these clips here. So release pin is right on top here. I'm just gonna use my little pick, pull it out. So there's the first one. This one, you can see it's kind of hard to tell from here because the light's bad, but the clip's right up here up top too. So just push that. There we go. Okay. So that one's off. And these are gonna stay here. So once you pull the steering wheel off, you just kind of leave them there. I guess you could take them out if you wanted to. Let me see. I'm not gonna mess with it because I can't see the clip to undo them, so it looks like it's a little bit different from the top here. The piece that these are connected to is your clock spring back there. I broke mine on my my Dodge Ram. How I broke it is I had the steering column loose and I turned the steering wheel too many times, so it popped the spring, and what ends up happening is none of your controls will work. Nothing up here. So the clock spring makes contact with the circuitry in the back here, and that's how you're able to turn your steering wheel without wires turning and eventually getting frayed and coming apart. So that's what the whole purpose of the clock spring is. So your paddle shifters, your cruise control, voice activation, and your volume up, down, next track, all that stuff works off of the clock spring. It's just a bunch of little circuits that make contact at all times while spinning. Before I take this bolt off, I made a little notch right there. That's my 12 o'clock mark. I marked the casing up here, but it's kind of irrelevant because you're going to use the casing from the new steering wheel anyway. But if I ever put this one back, it's already marked. This will get you really close to where you got to be. All right, 19mm socket with a small extension to make it out of the steering wheel. Grab the biggest ratchet you can find so you have some leverage. All right, now before I take the steering wheel all the way off, I'm gonna leave this nut on there so the steering wheel doesn't fall off completely. And we're gonna break it loose by banging on it clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever way. All right, so it did take a couple more little poundings and stuff. This is the very first time that this steering wheel has been off of this car, so I think once you take it off once or twice, it's a little different. So just trying to make sure that my marks that I made here are straight. I made another one at the bottom to kind of get a good visual here. And hopefully everything's okay. Okay, so you want to be careful not to tug on this because this will pull the clock spring out. So I got the nut off, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling out the steering wheel very slowly while pushing on the wires. Don't let that clock spring spin by itself. And just so you guys know, if you guys spin this clock spring can only spin so many times before it actually completely breaks apart on the inside and it stops working. So my Dodge Ram's clock spring was $280. Lexus wants over $1,000 for it. So all right, we got the steering wheel off, so let's start swapping out goodies into the new steering wheel and get this rolling. So here's the plan. I am just gonna start transplanting parts slowly, but first things first, these guys gotta come off. I actually really like the way these the metal feels on this, or aluminum, whatever it's made out of, but they're so tiny and I really like the bat wing look, so I think they'll stand out a little bit better. And this is something that can always get swapped out again in the future if you're not happy. But all right, so I'm just gonna put this here for now because that has to go in after this plastic is mounted. So for now, we're just taking it off. I kind of don't want to take off a lot of these wires because I need to keep track of where everything goes. I want it to be as close to original as possible. So I'm gonna start taking off these bolts. They gotta come off anyway, so just keep track of them in case there's any that are a different size. If you guys are doing this, I would recommend recording it just in case you gotta go back and check things again. You have a video of what you're doing so you know where everything goes. Just my thought, you know? Okay. This guy here is kind of a fucking pain, so it's the only thing holding this together still. Well, and these two little clips over here. So, don't want to bust anything. This little pick is so handy, it's crazy. All right, that part's off. Now, keep track of how that goes. Okay, plastic's off finally. This is routed through the inside, but now we have to take off these screws. Looks like all of these screws are the same size so far, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up. the same size. There we go. Oh wow, this comes off completely. Okay. So that'll get transferred. This looks like it just pops off. So this just pops off, and then it's got some screws on the inside holding this. So let's look at how the trim goes. I know this trim is held down by these screws because if you look at the carbon fiber part, these are the screws. So this is the end that receives the screw. So these little screws got to come off, and then this will pop apart, and then we can start assembling everything. All right, before I start playing around with the electronics, I'm gonna get these airbag tabs in place. It's pretty straightforward. You just need a little pin. It looks like there's a little ramp there so that you can just push it in. See that? All right, so right side coming off. There we go. Pops right in. And the last one is this bottom one, which was already partially off. There we go. All right. Now we have to transfer the controls here. So take these guys off. You'll need a smaller Phillips screwdriver for that. Oh, there's another screw back here. Kind of hidden. Trying to do this without having to take off all the wiring and then wondering later on where everything goes. There we go. Okay, now this comes right off, but we need this piece off as well. I don't see any tabs that are holding it. It just has guide plastics. That's it. Okay, one side off, one side to go. I've been so anxious to get this airbag in because, I mean, you stare at the steering wheel every time you go drive somewhere, right? So it's just such an important part for your car. Everything you do to a car for the exterior, you only enjoy when you park and you walk away from the car or you're walking up to the car, but it's almost like everyone else gets to enjoy it when they see you driving. But this steering wheel, it's just for you. All right, got both of these plastics off. Let's work this guy out. There we go. All right. Now it's time to puzzle all this together. It would suck if something didn't fit last minute right after doing all this work. I guess that's it. We're gonna take this back off and see how it goes on the other one. Okay, so I had it in my head that this needed to be super flush, but this is the OEM cover and it's not super flush. So I'm just gonna put it together, start putting the bolts on it, and I think we'll be okay. This is why it's important to not second guess yourself too much and just slap the original equipment back on real quick. There we go. All right. As I'm torquing it, I can actually feel this plastic pulling in closer and closer. So it's all the way up against it, and give this one a little extra oomph. There we go. First citizen. All right, this other side, I ended up squeezing it here, and I heard something pop into place. So I think we're good, but fitment's not great. There we go. This works better if you put the screw on there and hold it, because it's such a pain in the butt to guide it in there properly. There we go. All right, and you put your finger back here so you can feel it, bringing it together. All right, and just nice and snug, but not too tight. There we go, that one's all the way down. All right, I feel a lot better about this now that it's nice and torqued. I was starting to question the quality of this because the screws just weren't going in, especially on that right side. There we go. All right, look at that. It's beautiful. All right, move on to the next part. All right, now we need to mount this here. There we go. All right, we did it. Whew, I was sweating. This. So, if you guys remember earlier, this piece was bolted right here, like so. So we're gonna put that back. And this base, even though it doesn't look as pretty as the OEM one, is an OEM base. It's just got some dust from the when they finished the clear coat, probably the carbon fiber and all that. So but none of this is visible. So the important part is that everything fits just like it did before, right? That's the main thing that we want, is perfect fitment. Otherwise, what's the point of paying $1,000 for a cosmetic part if it's not going to be perfect? This looks a tiny bit off, but not too crazy. There we go, barely. These go here, right? This goes through the bottom. These are the paddle shifters here. All right, let's try this again. Snap this guy from the bottom. Okay. Now we're talking. All right, let's get these paddles in. All right. So now we can put this little guy in. Which way does it go? This way. And there we go. And that's these two screws here. After this, I think I'm gonna have to rewatch the video to make sure I'm routing everything correctly, but I will attempt it here. First, maybe we'll get it right together, and I won't have to rewatch it. There we go. Nice and tight. Okay, this guy goes up here, right? So does this one. This goes down here and snaps in here. And then those are my paddles on the back side. One goes here. Oh, I see. This part gets hooked back here. I'm telling you, this pick has saved me more times than I can count. This goes back here. And come on. Make sure you don't bend any of the pins. All right, back section is good. This is looking pretty good. I don't think I'm gonna have to rewatch the video because everything's pretty much where it needs to be. Everything's ready, guys. Let's get this boy back on the steering column. Okay. Connectors in. Now what I'm trying to do is line up the center with the little line that I gouged in there. Just kind of put it in there, just just for shits and giggles, and that way I can comfortably get these on. Okay. Now is the moment of truth. All right, torque pretty good. My bottom line actually lines up perfect right here, so I think I might be okay. I did 2 lines. I did one on the bottom, one on top. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. And I did that because I noticed that the top line was a little bit off. So this bottom line is supposed to line up with the F right here. So, all right, time to plug shit in. There's that. And that. And we have the little ground. And this guy, make sure everything's out of the way. All right, I think we're ready for the airbag. All right, guys, be super careful with this airbag. All of these pieces here are sharp and they will gouge the shit out of everything they touch. So my OEM plastic here has a nice little gouge from taking this off already, so got to be extra careful. If you guys remember correctly, pull this tab off first. There we go. Get this guy in and locked. And the ground, you probably want to do the ground first, actually. All right, now we have to guide this in very carefully. And then just, I think I'm guided in, so there we go. It's locked. All right, guys, battery's back in. Remember, when you disconnect the battery, your car will never start the first time, but it will the second time.